I know it seems highly unlikely to even make it to the interview stage in 2025. But if you are one of those lucky, fortunate few to be able to have a real interview face to face with a real person, first of all, you should consider yourself lucky. But the reality is, once you get to that point, it's not a matter of breathing a sigh of relief. It's not a matter of thinking that everything is finally going to be good. No, because there's really just one way to describe job interviews in 2025, and that's piss poor. I mean, they're absolutely terrible because it seems like these employers, these companies, really do have a chip on their shoulder, having to think about how some employees did quiet quitting and quiet this and quiet that, and basically all these different things where the employees gladly admitted that they did not work as hard as possible, where they were able to say, no, I'm not going to come into the office, I'm going to work remotely. Where they were able to work remotely, and some people abused the system and had 2 to 3 remote jobs at the same time. Where basically the employee had multiple job offers and could pick from their best one. And maybe the company just kept getting denied because they didn't have the best benefits package. They didn't offer a competitive salary. They didn't have a workplace or a hiring department that really excited the employees on the market. So now, like a jilted lover, these employers are really striking back and really taking advantage of having the upper hand. They are gleeful over the amount of power that they have. And with this additional power, with the current upper hand of the job market, employers are doing all kinds of things to make the interview process terrible for the employees. Well, I guess they're not even employees, for the job seeker. They're having people do free labor. They're having people jump through hoops. They're asking ridiculous questions like, what are people's spirit animals and what things do they do in their free time, which really shouldn't interest them at all. And just ridiculous amount of obstacles to overcome, only to just reject them at the 11th hour anyways. And with how hard it is to even land an interview, to just have the games, mind games and sometimes online games to deal with just to land a job, has many Americans absolutely irritated, and I don't blame them. But let's go over a couple of stories that I found online. We start off with Mia, who says, piss poor interviewers. Today, I had one of the most disappointing interviews I've ever experienced. And not because I wasn't prepared. It was due to the unprofessional attitude of the interviewer, if I can even call him that. The call came from a well-known nonprofit in Los Angeles offering $85,000 to $120,000, a serious salary range that warrants serious professionalism. I was hopeful, especially as someone who's built a strong resume through years of hard work and consistent professional growth. But what I received in return was a dismissive tone, sighs of irritation, and absolutely no clarity on the role itself. The interviewer jumped straight into questions without any introduction or context, something that would be unacceptable in any respectful hiring process. Mia is not happy because her viewpoint is, hey, this job position has a listed salary of $85,000 to $120,000. We're not talking about a minimum wage job where maybe you get used to treating people poorly, where there's extremely high turnover, where people just don't show up to their shifts, no one really gives a crap, and people are just trying to collect a little bit of money to not even really get by, right? They're not paid enough to care, and they act like it. But on a job like this, where it could potentially become a 6-figure job, there should be some professionalism. There should be some decorum, if you will. And to launch right into the interviews, I mean, I don't personally like small talk, but I mean, that's one of the things you do to settle people down when you bring them in for an interview. Say something like, hey, how was the commute coming in? How's your day going so far? You want, coffee, tea, or hey, the break room's over there. Help yourself to coffee, tea. Maybe you got some donuts, who knows? But to just dive right into it and act like you're absolutely bothered and annoyed by the person who is being interviewed by you is completely unprofessional. And in the first round, whether that be with a hiring manager, a talent acquisition specialist, or an external recruiter, the basics that they need to be able to tell you are the details about the role. I mean, maybe not every little detail, but hey, this is the department you're going to be working in. This is a brand new role that we have. This is the general requirements. We want to make sure this person is well versed in X, Y, and Z, has a couple of years of experience, whatever. You should at least be able to give an overview, and you certainly shouldn't have an annoyed kind of attitude when you're interviewing someone for a brand new job. Miha continues. Let me be clear. I take interviews seriously. I've been on both sides of the table, and I always respect others' time and effort. I expect the same in return. What makes an interview piss poor is that I gave great answers to his questions, but thought I was second guessed on my ability to make it to the site. And for the record, I live in Los Angeles. I'm a Long Beach native and a seasoned commuter with over 10 years of experience navigating the city. To question my ability to manage a commute shows a lack of awareness and an unfortunate assumption. This post isn't just about my experience. It's about a broader issue, employers and recruiters. Please remember that interviews are a two-way street. Candidates are evaluating you just as much as you're evaluating them. A poor interaction can do real damage to your reputation. Respect is free. Let's offer more of it. She had me in the first half, as the kids say. So yeah, you don't want to be annoyed and sigh and all that kind of stuff during the interview process. And I do genuinely believe that you should have some kind of overview, introduction, and explain the role. But it seems like her biggest issue, which she spent the most amount of time on, was questioning whether she could commute in. I mean, I've never lived in Los Angeles, but I've certainly worked in Miami, and I gotta imagine the traffic there is kind of similar, because I don't know if they straight up asked you where you live, but just they want to make sure that you can make it into the site, you know, because you could live in all kinds of different places. I know when I was working in Miami, because it's so expensive there, I had to live right outside of Miami. So it took me like an hour and a half sometimes to get home. I can maybe make it there in an hour, but an hour and a half home. So I don't think that's a crazy question to ask, if maybe it could be a 2-hour commute. And there's areas around Los Angeles, I believe. So unless you are right down the street, a commute could be a big deal. And maybe they had someone previously. We don't know their scars that they had from previous employees. Maybe a previous employee said, I can't do this commute, or they were always late, whatever. So we don't always know. But I don't know if that should be the biggest thing that drove you crazy about the interview process. The stuff in the first half, sure. Another thing when I read this LinkedIn post is I'm surprised by the amount of people who actually post things on LinkedIn, a professional job networking site where you're supposed to share professional experience and professional posts, who don't really spell check. I mean, I correct it as I read, but it literally reads, "What makes an interview or piss poor is that I gave great answers to his questions, but though I was second guessed on my ability to make it to the site." So back-to-back sentences with typos, grammatical errors. I mean, hopefully you don't talk like this in real life. Hopefully this is a mistake you're rushing through LinkedIn, because I mean, if you can't say you gave great answers in the same sentence that has misspellings and that is not grammatically correct. So I don't know. When people say, sometimes people value the answers that they give in interviews and their ability to articulate a little bit too high. So I don't know about that, but I always find it interesting when someone's like, "I'm a great candidate, I have all this experience, I'm super talented," and they can't even write a basic LinkedIn post without all these errors. But anyways, I think that it's naive in 2025 to just think that the employees and the job seekers have the upper hand. I think time after time after time, every episode of Labor Gains here talks about the fact that we don't have the upper hand. So I don't think these employers really care about their reputation. I don't think they care about what job seekers think of them. I think that they can do whatever they want to. And if they're not happy, if they get frustrated, they could easily send our jobs over to Mexico, India, Philippines, etc. And at the end of the day, they probably feel like they're doing us a service. Like, hey, at least I'm interviewing an American, and if it doesn't go perfect and the American doesn't take half the salary that they were making 5 years ago, they're gonna say, see, this is why we can't hire Americans. Let's increase the headcount over in India. But if our main example here was being irritated over someone asking if they're okay with the commute, I don't think that should be a main reason why you feel like the interview went terrible. And please, people, proofread these LinkedIn posts, because this is an example of your professional writing. I know as an employer, I wouldn't want to hire someone who makes all these kind of mistakes, especially with all the tools we have to do spell check, grammar check, etc. If this is your representation of how you're going to write in a professional manner, this ain't it. Especially someone who has a LinkedIn profile where I can see it says senior program manager. So that's a lot of communication, a lot of writing. You just can't afford to make these kind of mistakes. Next, Beth says, just had a discouraging interview. The recruiter seemed irritated that I was interviewing for a role I'm clearly overqualified for. And honestly, I get it. It's frustrating on both sides. But this is the reality so many of us are facing. Seasoned professionals taking interviews for entry-level, low-wage roles, not because we lack direction or ambition, but because the job market has left us with few options. How do you explain to a recruiter that you're not above the work? You're just trying to stay afloat, get a foot in the door, and rebuild. I always try to stay upbeat, professional, and grateful, but I'm also so tired. So we have back-to-back posters who complained about the job interviewer or the recruiter seeming irritated. And I don't understand why hiring managers are at least gonna visually show themselves irritated, unless, yes, they're also frustrated and they're also tired. But at the end of the day, we have to realize that the recruiter, the HR person, the hiring managers, they have roles. So it might be annoying or frustrating to not find the dream candidate that you're looking for at 50% of market rate, but at least you have a job. You should not be as irritated or bothered by this process as people who are fighting, clawing, scratching to get some kind of employment when they have absolutely none. That, I think, is more likely to lead to frustration and anger and irritation than just interviewing someone who maybe is not a good fit, or maybe interviewing someone who maybe you think is overqualified. But then that is what happens when you're out of touch with the current job market. You don't realize that, yes, they may be overqualified, but you got to work somewhere. Millions of Americans are not able to land jobs that they are just qualified for. They're either going to be overqualified, but at least she's in her realm, it seems like, it looks like HR, which is a lot of these posts are about, I can't get a job and I'm HR. So if you're deciding your major or deciding what you want to do with your life and you're still very young, I don't think HR is the way to go based off of all my research on this channel. But at least it seems like she is applying for a job that matches her background, her skills, her career. And it's not a matter of applying to retail or fast food or something like that. Like, it's not that much of a stretch. Maybe she has experience as a senior HR person and this is maybe a mid-level or a junior, but I think it'd be a good thing to be overqualified. But the companies are going to say, if they say you're overqualified, they're going to think, oh, this person's bouncing as soon as they can, not knowing that they might not get another job offer for a year or two. So it's not like they're going to get a brand new job offer in a week or two and going to be out of there. It might be years that they're stuck there. So if they want to take a step back, you should be able to let them do it. If they accept the joke of a salary that you're probably offering them, someone who is overqualified and has a bunch of actual experience, way more experience than they need, if they want to take a lot less, if they want to take a huge pay cut, you should let them, because it's not realistic for them to leave you in a week or two. The job market is too bad for that. Beth continues, tired of job searching, tired of the pain and disappointment, tired of feeling defeated every single day, tired of feeling invisible like none of it matters, tired of crying behind closed doors, tired of pretending to be okay, tired of living a life that feels stuck on pause. I know I'm not alone in this. Maybe one day it won't be like this for those of us in this fight. Maybe not today, but someday. Hashtag job search struggles. Employers are really way too focused on this overemployed situation. They don't understand how long people have been looking for a job. The fact that it's taken people well over 6 months to land meaningful employment, and who knows if that even equals gainful employment where they can pay all of their bills. Probably still not at that level for the people struggling through this job market. They don't realize that people are getting laid off multiple times within a couple of years. And the fact that people just need to be able to get a job. And yes, they would get a better job, a job that they're more closely aligned in qualifications for if they could. They just can't. And yeah, this is leading to tears. This is leading to people having breakdowns, crying behind closed doors, not being okay, just trying to get on with their lives, just trying to have a freaking job. And it's probably not a job that they love. It's probably not a job that is going to bring them fulfillment, but they got bills to pay. They need to be able to feed themselves and their families. They need to be able to keep the roof over their head. They don't want to get hundreds of dollars behind on the car payment. They don't want to have a medical emergency and not have a job that has insurance so that it doesn't bankrupt them. Like, people just want to land a good job, and they have to jump through all these hoops. They have to deal with the frustrating nature of the interview process. They have to feel disrespected and insulted. And it's just like, it shouldn't be like this. If you brought me in for this interview, maybe, okay, if you're gonna ghost me right away when I apply, all right, fine. But to bring people in for interviews and then tell them that they're overqualified, I just don't get it. Didn't you read these people's resume? Don't you see their experience? Don't you check out their LinkedIn? Why even waste their time only to tell them that, oh, I thought your background was impressive, but we don't want to hire you. I think that you might be a good fit, or I think that you could definitely do this job, but you're overqualified. Like, come on. Stop playing these mind games with people. Just stop doing it, because it's irritating, it's frustrating, and people can only take so much of this nonsense. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you have some extra time, YouTube thinks you'll get a lot of value out of the video on screen now. And until next time, remember, times are tough, but so are you. Talk to you later.